If you ever go back in the Wooley swamp, son, you better not go at night. There's things out there in the middle of them woods that make a strong man die from fright. There's things that crawl and things that fly and things that creep around on the ground. And they say the ghost of Lucius Clay gets up and it walks around. But I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself. And I couldn't conceive it, 'cause I never would listen to nobody else. And I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself that there's some things in this world we just can't explain. The old man lived in the Wooley swamp way back in Booger Woods. And he never did do a lot of harm in the world, but he never did do no good. People didn't think too much of him, they all thought he acted funny. The old man didn't care about people anyway, all he cared about was his money. He'd stuff it all down in mason jars and bury it all around. And on certain nights, if the moon was right, he'd dig it up out of the ground. He'd pour it all out on the floor of his shack and he'd run his fingers through it. Yeah, Lucius Clay was a greedy old man, that's all there was to it. But I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself. And I couldn't conceive it, 'cause I never would listen to nobody else. And I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself that there's some things in this world I just can't explain. The Cagle boys were white trash, lived over on Carver's Creek. They were mean as a snake and sneaky as a cat and belligerent when they'd speak. One night the oldest brother said, "Y'all meet me in the Wooley swamp later. We'll take old Lucius's money and we'll feed him to the alligators." They found the old man out in the back with a shovel in his hand and 13 rusty mason jars he just dug up out of the sand. And they all went crazy and they beat the old man and they picked him up off the ground and they threw him in the swamp and stood there and laughed as the black water sucked him down. And they turned around and went back to the shack and they picked up the money and ran. They hadn't gone nowhere when they realized they were running in quicksand. And they struggled and they screamed, but they couldn't get away. And just before they went under, they could hear that old man laughing in a voice as loud as thunder. Now that's been 50 years ago, and you can go back by there yet. There's a spot in the yard in the back of that shack where the ground is always wet. And on certain nights, if the moon is right, down by the dark footpath, you can hear 3 young men screaming, and you can hear one old man laugh. If you ever go back in the Wooley swamp, son, you better not go at night. There's things out there in the middle of them woods that make a strong man die from fright. Things that crawl and things that fly and things that creep around on the ground. And they say the ghost of the Lucius Clay gets up and he walks around. But I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself. And I couldn't conceive it, 'cause I never would listen to nobody else. And I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself that there's some things in this world I just can't explain. Some things in this world I just can't explain.